Love the guy. Now, when I was elected as President of the United States, my predecessor had kept a Churchill bust in the Oval Office. There are only so many tables where you can put busts, otherwise it starts looking a little cluttered. And I thought it was appropriate, and I suspect that most people here in the United Kingdom might agree, that as the first African American president, it might be appropriate to have a bust of Dr. Martin Luther King in my office, to remind me of all the hard work of a lot of people who would somehow allow me to have the privilege of holding this office. That's just on Winston Churchill. I think people should know that, know my thinking there. With respect to the special relationship, I have a staff member who will not be named, because it might embarrass her a little bit, who generally on foreign trips does not leave the hotel or the staff room because she's constantly doing work making this happen. She has had one request the entire time that I have been president, and that is, could she accompany me to Windsor on the off chance that she might get a peek at Her Majesty the Queen. And gracious as she is, Her Majesty actually had this person, along with a couple of others, lined up so that as we emerged from lunch, they could say hello. And this staff person, who is as tough as they come, almost fainted, and which was, I'm glad she didn't, because it would have caused an incident. That's the special relationship. We are so bound together that nothing's going to impact the emotional and cultural and intellectual affinities between our two countries. So I don't come here suggesting in any way that that is impacted by a decision that the people of the United Kingdom may make around whether or not they're members of the European Union. That is there, that's solid, and that will continue, hopefully eternally. And the cooperation in all sorts of ways, through NATO, through G7, G20, all those things will continue. But as David said, if one of our best friends is in an organization that enhances their influence and enhances their power and enhances their economy, then I want them to stay in it. Or at least I want to be able to tell them, you know, I think this makes you guys bigger players. I think this helps your economy. I think this helps to create jobs. And so ultimately it's your decision, but precisely because we're bound at the hip, I want you to know that before you make your decision. Margaret Brennan.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. President, Vladimir Putin hasn't stopped Assad as he led you to believe he would, and the ceasefire in Syria appears to be falling apart. Will you continue to bet on what looks to be a losing strategy? Mr. Prime Minister, the UK today warned its citizens traveling to North Carolina and Mississippi about laws there that affect transgender individuals. As a friend, what do you think of those laws? Mr. President, would you like to weigh in on that? And sir, if you'd indulge us, Prince, well, indulge all of us back in the US, sir. Prince passed away. You were a fan. You had invited him to perform at the White House. Can you tell us what made you a fan?
I'm trying to figure out which order to do this. Maybe I'll start with North Carolina and Mississippi. I want everybody here in the United Kingdom to know that the people of North Carolina and Mississippi are wonderful people. They are hospitable people. They are beautiful states. And you are welcome. And you should come and enjoy yourselves. And I think you'll be treated with extraordinary hospitality. I also think that the laws that have been passed there are wrong and should be overturned, and they're in response to politics in part some strong emotions that are generated by people, some of whom are good people, but I just disagree with when it comes to respecting the equal rights of all people, regardless of sexual orientation, whether they're transgender or gay or lesbian. And although I respect their different viewpoints, I think it's very important for us not to send signals that anybody is treated differently. And I think it's fair to say that we're not unique among countries where, particularly under a federal system in which powers disperse, that there are going to be some localities or local officials that put forward laws that aren't necessarily reflective of a national consensus. But if you guys come to North Carolina and Mississippi, everybody will be treated well. The second question with respect to Syria, I am deeply concerned about the cessation of hostilities frame and whether it's sustainable. Now, keep in mind that I have always been skeptical about Mr. Putin's actions and motives inside of Syria. He is, along with Iran, the preeminent backer of a murderous regime that I do not believe can regain legitimacy within his country because he's murdered a lot of people. Having said that, what I also believe is that we cannot end the crisis in Syria without political negotiations and without getting all the parties around the table to craft a transition plan. And that by necessity means that there are going to be some people on one side of the table who I deeply disagree with and whose actions I deeply abhor. And that's how oftentimes you resolve conflicts like this that are taking an enormous toll on the Syrian people. The cessation of hostilities actually held longer than I expected. And for 7 weeks, we've seen a significant reduction in violence inside that country, and that gave some relief to people. I talked to Putin on Monday precisely to reinforce to him the importance of us trying to maintain this cessation of hostilities, asking him to put more pressure on Assad, indicating to him that we would continue to try to get the moderate opposition to stay at the negotiating table in Geneva. But this has always been hard, and is going to keep being hard. And what David and I discussed in our meeting was that we will continue to prosecute the war against Daesh, against ISIL. We are going to continue to support those who are prepared to fight ISIL. We're going to continue to target them. We're going to continue to make progress, but we're not going to solve the overall problem unless we can get this political track moving. I assure you that we have looked at all options. None of them are great. And so we are going to play this option out. If in fact the cessation falls apart, we'll try to put it back together again, even as we continue to go after ISIL. And it is in my belief, it's my belief that ultimately Russia will recognize that just as this can't be solved by a military victory on this part of those we support, Russia may be able to keep the lid on alongside Iran for a while, but if you don't have a legitimate government there, they will be bled as well. And that is not, that's not speculation on my part. I think the evidence all points in that direction. And finally, with respect to Prince, I love Prince because he put out great music, and he was a great performer. I didn't know him well. He came to perform at the White House last year and was extraordinary and creative and original and full of energy. And so it's a remarkable loss, and I'm staying at Winfield House, the U.S. Ambassador's residence. It so happens our ambassador has a turntable, and so this morning we played Purple Rain and Delirious just to get warmed up before we left the house for important bilateral meetings like this.
It's a home of great music, and ambassadors brought a lot of brilliant talent. And let me just answer, I've been to North Carolina many years ago and enjoyed it. I've not yet made it to Mississippi, but one day I hope to. The guidance that we put out, the Foreign Office gives advice on travel, and it obviously deals with laws and situations as they are, and it tries to give that advice dispassionately, impartially, but it's very important that it does so. It's something that a lot of attention is given to. Our view on any of these things is that we believe that we should be trying to use law to end discrimination rather than to embed it or enhance it, and that's something we're comfortable saying to countries and friends anywhere in the world. But obviously, the laws people pass is a matter for their own legislatures, but we make clear our own views about the importance of trying to end discrimination, and we've made some important steps forward in our own country on that front, which we're proud of. With that,
All good?
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
I'll take this away.